Commander Arya stood tall on the bridge of her warship, the vast stars stretching endlessly outside the thick glass. Her uniform was perfect sharp lines, metals shining softly in the dim light. Every movement she made showed strength and control. To her crew, she was the fearless leader of the Zinther Empire's fleet. But beneath that uniform, Arya was just a woman. Carrying a heavy secret in her heart, Arya had risen through the ranks faster than anyone else in her species. Her skills in strategy and diplomacy were unmatched. Many looked up to her, but very few knew the burden she bore. Her people were proud and strong, but the long years of war had worn on her. The weight of responsibility was crushing. She often felt alone, even surrounded by hundreds of loyal soldiers. As Arya watched the glowing stars, a message appeared on her console. The human diplomat Ethan had arrived in orbit, ready for peace talks. The humans were new to the galaxy's politics, but had quickly become important players. Arya's superiors ordered her to keep a close eye on him and to secure the best deal for the Zinther Empire. Ethan's ship slowly moved closer to Arya's warship. He was nothing like the soldiers and commanders Arya was used to. He looked calm, with a gentle confidence. When he entered the command room, his eyes met Arya's for a moment. There was something unusual in his gaze, not fear, but respect and curiosity. "Commander Arya," Ethan said with a polite bow, "I hope we can find peace for our peoples." Arya nodded, but kept her face steady. "Peace is possible, but only if both sides listen." The talks began with careful words and long pauses. Arya noticed Ethan's way of listening. He did not rush to speak or judge. He asked questions not to catch her in lies, but to understand her people's fears and hopes at the end of the day. When the doors closed and the room was empty, except for Arya and Ethan, something changed. Arya dropped her formal tone. "You do not fear me," she said quietly. Ethan smiled slightly. "Why would I fear someone who carries such a burden? Beneath this uniform you are just like any of us." Arya looked down at her hands, clenched into fists. "That burden is heavy. I lead thousands, and every decision can mean life or death." Ethan nodded. "We humans know what it means to carry weight in silence, but sometimes sharing it can lighten the load." Arya felt a strange warmth in her chest. No one had ever spoken to her like this before, not as a commander, but as a person. That night, Arya stood alone on the observation deck, the cold air brushing against her face. She thought of her family, lost to the endless wars. She thought of the sacrifices made and the loneliness that followed. Ethan joined her silently. Sometimes strength is not in hiding who you are, but in showing it. Arya took a deep breath. If only it were that simple. "I believe it can be," Ethan said softly. "You don't have to carry it all alone." For the first time in many years, Arya allowed herself to feel vulnerable. Beneath her uniform, she was just a woman tired of war, but still full of hope. The stars above seemed brighter, as if the universe itself was watching. After the first meeting, Arya found herself thinking more about Ethan than she wanted. The human diplomat was different. He listened not just with his ears but with his heart. Arya had spent so long hiding her feelings behind the cold mask of a commander that she almost forgot what it was like to be truly understood. The peace talks continued the next day in a large conference room aboard Arya's warship. Representatives from both sides sat around a long table, their faces serious and guarded. The tension was thick, like a storm ready to break. Arya took her place at the head of the table, her uniform sharp and perfect. But inside, she was tired. Ethan spoke calmly. "We all want the same thing, a future where our children can live without fear." Arya watched him closely. His words were simple, but full of meaning. Many leaders would have used grand speeches, filled with threats and promises. Ethan spoke like a friend, like someone who believed peace was real. As the hours passed, Arya found herself lowering her defenses just a little. She shared stories about her people, how they valued honor, family, and the pain the long war had caused. Ethan listened carefully, asking questions that showed he truly cared. During a break, Arya stepped outside onto the ship's balcony. The stars stretched endlessly above her, silent witnesses to the galaxy's struggles. Ethan followed quietly and stood beside her. "Arya," he said softly, "you don't have to carry this alone. Even the strongest leaders need help." Arya turned to him, her eyes searching. "Help is hard to ask for when everyone expects me to be strong all the time." "True strength," Ethan said, "comes from knowing when to be vulnerable." Arya smiled sadly. "Beneath this uniform, I'm just a woman, scared and tired." Reached out and gently touched her hand. "And that woman is brave. Brave enough to face war, and brave enough to seek peace." Their hands lingered for a moment before Arya pulled back, startled by the closeness. "We cannot afford distractions," she said, trying to sound firm. Ethan nodded, understanding. "Of course. But remember, even in war, there is room for trust." The talks resumed, but Arya felt a new warmth inside her. Ethan's words had touched something deep she rarely showed. She realized that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to hide everything beneath her uniform. Later that day, a sudden message arrived from Arya's home planet. A rival faction was threatening a nearby colony. The news shook Arya.
Ow.
The war was not yet over, and her people still suffered. Arya's officers urged her to prepare for battle. Her heart ached. She wanted peace, but the fight was still real. Ethan offered his support. "We will face this together." Arya's vulnerability showed in her eyes as she made the hard decisions. She confided in Ethan the fears she kept hidden. From her crew, the fear of losing more people she cared about. Ethan stood beside her, steady and calm. "You carry a heavy burden, Arya, but you are not alone." That night, Arya lay awake in her quarters. The weight of command pressed on her. Memories of past battles and lost friends haunted her. She thought about the human beside her, the one who saw her beyond the uniform. She whispered to herself, "Beneath this uniform, I'm just a woman." Morrow would bring new challenges. But for the first time, Arya felt hope. Hope that strength came not from hiding her true self, but from letting others see. Arya sat in her command chair, staring at the holographic map of the nearby colony under threat. The blinking red markers showed enemy movements. Her heart pounded, but her face stayed calm. She was a leader, a commander, but inside fear tried to creep in. This was her greatest challenge yet. The message from her home planet had stirred something deep. The rival faction was growing bolder. If the colony fell, it would be a huge loss for the Zinther Empire and weaken her position. In the galaxy, Arya's people looked to her for strength and hope. She could not fail them. Ethan stood beside her, watching the map silently. He had spent many hours learning the Empire's tactics and understanding the stakes. "Arya," he said softly, "I know you carry a heavy burden, but you don't have to bear it alone." Arya glanced at him, her eyes tired but steady. "Have to. If I show weakness, my people will lose faith." "Sometimes," Ethan replied, "showing your true self can build stronger faith. People follow those who are real, not perfect."
Arya
considered his words. She had always been taught to hide her emotions, to wear the uniform like armor. But that armor sometimes felt like a cage. Just then, a message came through reports of an attack on the colony had begun. Arya's officers sprang into action. "Prepare the fleet for immediate deployment," Arya ordered. The warship shook as it jumped into faster-than-light travel toward the colony. Arya's mind raced. She thought of the families there, the innocent lives at risk. She felt the weight of every decision heavier than ever before. In the quiet moments between orders, Arya found herself speaking with Ethan more. He listened without judgment, offering ideas but also space to just talk. She shared memories from her childhood, how she lost her parents to an earlier war, and how that loss had shaped her determination to protect others. Ethan shared stories of Earth, of humans who faced hardship and found strength and hope in community. Arya realized that despite their differences, their fears and hopes were the same. As the fleet approached the colony, Arya gathered her officers. "This fight is not just about weapons," she said. "It is about protecting what we love and believing in a future worth fighting for." The battle was fierce. Explosions rocked the fleet as enemy ships attacked. Arya stayed focused, giving orders and inspiring her crew. But inside, her heart ached for the lives caught in the crossfire at one point. Her ship took a direct hit and alarms blared. Arya remained calm, coordinating repairs and defense. Ethan stood beside her, steady and calm, a quiet support in the storm. After hours of battle, the enemy retreated. The colony was saved but damaged. Arya's fleet hovered protectively, ready for any new threats. In the aftermath, Arya visited the colony's leaders and people. She saw the fear in their eyes, but also relief. A child ran up to her, clutching a small toy and smiling shyly. Arya bent down and smiled warmly, the weight of command lifting for a moment. That night, back on her ship, Arya stood once more on the observation deck. Stars twinkled above, silent witnesses to the day's struggles and victories. Ethan joined her quietly. "You fought well today." Arya sighed. "I did what I had to do, but it is hard to lead when you feel broken inside." "Your strength comes from those feelings," Ethan said gently. "Don't be afraid to let them show." Arya looked at him, the uniform seeming less heavy now. "Maybe beneath this uniform, I'm not just a commander. Maybe I'm just a woman who wants peace. And that makes you strong." Ethan smiled. Arya nodded, feeling hope bloom inside her. The war was far from over, but she had found something. Knew a connection. A truth. Beneath the uniform, she was not alone. Arya sat in the quiet of her private quarters, the soft hum of the ship around her. The war was not over, but for a moment she allowed herself to breathe. Her thoughts drifted to the strange connection she felt with Ethan, the human diplomat. Despite the distance between their worlds, something was growing between them. A fragile hope that maybe peace could be more than just words. The ship's alert system broke the silence. An urgent message flashed on the screen. "Commander. Arya, we have received intelligence of a planned attack from within our own ranks. A rival faction seeks to overthrow your leadership." Arya's heart skipped. Betrayal within her empire was the worst kind of danger. She had to act fast, but trust was fragile now. Even those closest to her might be enemies. Ethan appeared beside her, concern clear in his eyes. "We will face this together. You don't have to fight alone." Arya nodded, feeling the weight of her duty settle again. The uniform was back on, but beneath it. She held on to the hope Ethan had given her. The next days were a storm of meetings and secret investigations. Arya worked with her loyal officers to uncover the traitors. The Empire's politics were complex and dangerous. Every step brought new challenges. Arya felt the walls closing in. She missed the moments of simple honesty she shared with Ethan. Their conversations had become brief, but precious. In those moments, she was not a commander, but just a woman. One evening, as the ship traveled through a quiet sector, Ethan found Arya alone in the observation room. The stars glimmered outside like tiny fires. "Arya," he said softly, "you are not just a leader. You are someone who cares deeply, who fights not for power, but for the future." Arya looked at him, her eyes tired but shining. "Sometimes I wonder if I am strong enough." "Strength is not always loud," Ethan replied. "Sometimes it is quiet and steady, like the stars." Arya smiled, feeling a calm she hadn't known in years. "Thank you for reminding me." The investigation revealed the traitors, a small group led by a former ally jealous of Arya's rise. The confrontation was painful. Arya chose mercy, offering them a chance to change rather than destroy. This choice surprised many, but showed the true strength beneath her uniform. As the threat faded, Arya and Ethan planned a new strategy for peace. Their secret alliance grew stronger. They shared ideas and hopes, dreaming of a galaxy where their peoples could live without fear. Arya's vulnerability became her power. She no longer hid behind the uniform's cold lines. Instead, she let her true self guide her, a woman who believed in peace, even when surrounded by war. One night, standing together under the stars, Arya whispered, beneath this uniform, I'm not just a leader. I'm someone who wants to change the world. Ethan took her hand gently. And you will. Because you are brave enough to be real. The galaxy was still full of dangers, but Arya had found a new strength. The strength of honesty, trust, and hope. Arya's ship drifted through the dark space as she prepared for the most difficult challenge yet. Tensions between the Zinther Empire and the rival factions were rising. The fragile peace she and Ethan had worked for was under threat. Arya knew that this battle could decide the future for many. Her crew looked to her with trust and hope. Arya's uniform shone under the ship's lights, but inside she felt the weight of every soul depending on her. She took a deep breath and reminded herself why she fought not for glory, but to protect her people and build a better future. Ethan arrived to offer his support. We stand with you, he said firmly. Together, we can face whatever comes. Arya smiled softly. Thank you. Your friendship means more than you know. As the fleet moved closer to the battle zone, Arya held meetings to prepare her. Commanders, she spoke, not just as a leader, but as someone who shared their fears and hopes. We fight not because we want war, but because we must protect what we love, she told them. The battle began with fierce energy. Enemy ships attacked with relentless force. Arya stayed calm, guiding her fleet with skill and courage. Her voice was steady, her commands clear. Yet beneath the surface, she felt the ache of every life at risk. During a critical moment, Arya's ship was hit. Alarms blared, and crew members rushed to repair the damage. Arya's hands tightened on the control panel, refusing to show fear. Ethan rushed to her side. We will get through this, he said. We're not alone. Arya looked at him and saw not just a diplomat, but a true partner. The battle raged on, but with Ethan's support and her crew's loyalty, Arya felt stronger. After hours of fighting, the enemy began to retreat. Arya ordered a cautious advance to secure the area. The victory was hard-won, but hopeful. In the calm after the storm, Arya visited the injured and thanked her crew. She saw in their eyes the same hope she felt. The uniform was still there, but now it carried a new meaning, a symbol, not just of command, but of shared strength and humanity. That night, Arya stood with Ethan on the observation deck. The stars shone brightly, like promises of peace yet to come. We have come far, Arya said softly. But the journey is not over. Ethan took her hand, and we will walk it together. Arya smiled, feeling the warmth of connection. She had long denied herself. Beneath the uniform, she was just a woman who dared to hope, to trust, and to lead with her heart. The galaxy was wide and full of dangers. But Arya knew one thing for sure. She was not alone anymore. The galaxy was still uncertain, but Commander Arya felt something new within her hope. The long war had tested her in ways she never imagined. Yet now, she stood ready to build a future that went beyond battles and uniforms. The peace talks had succeeded in bringing a fragile calm. Arya and Ethan worked closely, sharing ideas to rebuild trust between their peoples. They traveled to colonies and cities, speaking with leaders and ordinary citizens alike. Arya's strength was no longer just in her command, but in her ability to connect and inspire. One evening, as the twin suns set on Arya's home planet, she stood beside Ethan on a balcony overlooking a bustling city. The air was filled with sounds of life, laughter, music, and the hum of progress. It was a far cry from the shadows of war that had once darkened this place. Arya turned to Ethan and smiled. I used to think my uniform was a shield, something to hide behind. But now I see it as a symbol of the woman I am beneath it. Ethan nodded. And that woman has changed the galaxy. Not through power alone, but through courage and kindness. Arya's heart swelled. She thought of the battles fought, the friends lost, and the moments of doubt she had faced. Yet through it all, she had found strength in being real, in showing vulnerability and asking for help, and trusting others. Their journey was not over. Challenges remained, but Arya no longer faced them alone. The connection she and Ethan shared was a beacon, lighting the way forward. The next day, Arya addressed a crowd gathered in the city square. Her uniform gleamed in the sunlight as she spoke with passion. "We are not just leaders and soldiers," she said. "We are people with hopes, fears, and dreams. Beneath every uniform is a story worth knowing." The crowd listened, moved by her words. Arya saw faces filled with hope and determination. The future was bright because they would face it together later. In the quiet of her quarters, Arya removed her uniform for a moment and looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back was strong, yes, but also tender, brave, and real beneath. The uniform Arya was just a woman, and that truth made her unstoppable.